All right. Good boy. Good boy. All right. I've got Koda here again today. We had done a little bit of intro to liberty with him last time. Today we're going to be doing an exercise that's pretty fundamental. Use it for a lot of different things. It's an exercise that I usually start off some groundwork with. It helps them kind of know where their body is and starts the conversation of talking to different parts of it specifically, and it also is a good practice for them practicing self-control over their body and their mind. And so it's fairly simple. I'm going to be just asking him to do some half circles around me on this wall, maybe backing up. And as we continue to do this, I can start asking for more specific things like a shoulder or his hind end, or even just stillness. So first thing is I'm just going to ask for some space. Good boy. And I'm being very vague right now starting off because we haven't established very clear communication yet. So I'm going to start very, very basic starting off. I'm not going to say, hey, go parallel to this wall. I'm just simply saying, I need some space from you, and I'd like you to move in that direction to give it to me. I'm not asking for him to be straight. I'm not asking him to be parallel to anything. Just give me some space. And so this is where I start to explain to him what some of my expectations are going to be as we start working with each other. And so one of my expectations from my horse is that if I ask you to go somewhere or do something, can you just be patient and stay there until I ask you to do something else, or that you check in with me. But ultimately, I have this kind of like implied permanence of the things that I'm asking. So even just starting off here before we get into me asking him a lot of stuff, first I'm just saying, hey, once you find your place over there, can you just stay and wait? Not allow that shift of a foot because he was completely off balance. So it wasn't a hand moving. So now he's sitting and waiting. This is what I like to see. Good boy. And so I have a few options here. I could click and treat for kind of a direct, yes, exactly, that's what I want. Or I can just kind of let him sit and feel this stillness for a little bit. And we're really starting off with some foundational stuff with him. He's a really good boy. Just go this half for me. Good boy. He's a really good boy, but we've got some anxiety. We've got some like attachment issues, some attention issues, right? Where our emotions kind of drive our decisions more than like a thought process, more than a thought process does. So we are going to be focusing on this guy's self-control and ability to kind of interact with what's going on instead of just reacting to it, right? Being able to engage with our world instead of being just engaged with. Good boy. And so once I feel like we're in a good place, and so we see some frustration, right? Or some energy that needs to come out, right? Because usually he's pacing back and forth, and I've asked him to stay still, and he's able to do that for just so long until the energy starts leaking out other ways. And I can just interrupt that in a neutral fashion, right? And so just asking him to stay there when he's thinking about going elsewhere. And then once I feel like his mind is still enough, we're going to go back to pawing here for a second. I'm going to see if I can interrupt it, get him to just stand, get him to just stand. Get him to just stand, and I'm asking him to move away from the stimuli here. There. And oftentimes when we kind of get that brace, or that wasn't really a freeze, but we had a little bit of a brace there. Usually there's a pop coming out of it, and then here we have an expression of the release. And he's going to think about going off, and I'm just going to interrupt it and see if I can ask him to stay there. And so starting off, I want it to be very, very, very simple. Set my horse up for success. If he can't stay in one place, then I certainly can't ask him to go to another. Good. Then we found some relaxation, some centering of the self. And so now I'm going to ask him, hey, why don't you go over in that direction that you're thinking about? I'm going to open the door. His neck went in that direction thinking about it. And then when we didn't quite have the response, then I kind of closed the door, kind of escorting him into the direction of the right answer. Good. And asking him, hey, you can be really anywhere on this quarter of the circle, as long as you're nice and still. And being in your body instead of the mind dragging you a million different places. Good. And so once I see some relaxation here, then we'll go on to asking him to move again around the half circle. But I want him to start thinking about being in his body instead of his mind going outside of the arena. We're listening to the chickens. There's a little breath and the thought to move, and I'm going to ask him to stay there. I'll allow the one step, but I'm asking him for it to stay. And I'm asking for the brain to come here in this arena on top of his chest and neck. Just staying right there, and don't come into my space, please. Good. Good boy. And so I have my invisible boundary here. I know exactly where it is, and I just needed to kind of illustrate where that line was for me. Notice my body language stayed very neutral. I didn't lunge after him. It's just very clear that that was as close as I'd like him to get. And so now he's here with me, and so I'll offer him again, hey, let's think about going out onto this half circle. Good. And I can verbally kind of affirm that thought. Good. And so that's something else we're going to work on too, is I'd ideally, you see how he's moving towards the pressure that I'm putting on him. I'd like him to yield to the pressure when it's applied as pressure. I can use my flag as a drawing stimuli where I'm asking to move towards it, but right now I'm asking him to move away from my flag. And so this guy doesn't have the worst brace in the world, but a small one is there. And so that's just something that we're going to have to address as this conversation develops. Good. And then he's here, and I ask for something else. And so the pattern that I'm creating with this guy too is that when we bring our mind back to our body, see that brace again initially, and then I didn't really have to do much to get him to yield to it, but that his initial reaction is to go into it. But the pattern that I want to create is that when the mind comes back to the body, then we can begin to move, then we can feel good, we can feel unified. But when the mind is gone and it's not connected to the body, we have to stop and we have to wait and we have to collect ourselves. And so once I see the mind coming back, I'm looking at his expression. I'm looking at where his attention is. Is it outside? His ears are pointing behind him. He's listening for his friends. But once he says, oh, what am I doing in here? Who's this person attached to me? Can I feel this rope on my chin? Once he's in the moment, then we can move. Then we can start to explore. This guy's really inquisitive. He wants to take in all this stimuli. Good boy. That's around him. Good. Good. And so it's also very important with these ones that have a tendency to run into the pressure sometimes is that we have to think about how far can we or are we willing to escalate, right? And if I don't want to escalate that much, or if I have a ceiling, which we all have a ceiling of how far we can escalate, then we have to start low enough so that we have somewhere to go. Because if I start at a 6 or a 7 when he pushes into me like that, I only have a few more notches to go up before I don't have any more gas in the tank. That's also not giving him an opportunity to be soft and respond to things lightly, right? Push creates more push if there's no opportunity for release. So when he pushes in to my pressure, I really better hope that I started with a 1 out of 10 pressure so that when I have to increase it, it's not too much. And so we got some cars and stuff driving out there. Good. Every once in a while, I might use this flag to ask him to come back where we are with his mind. And I'm asking for a little more space here. I'm going to wait for a second as he poops. And I'm going to ask again. Thank you. And this is where the self-control part comes in, right? He's having trouble controlling his physical body with the mental stimulation that's going on for him, right? Because from the outside, it seems very simple. Just stand here and relax. But clearly, this is a difficult task for him right now, right? And you can see the process, right? We become fidgety. Our mind goes outside of the arena. We become, it's all right. Good. Good. And so we had a moment of escalation. Let's see if we can bring ourselves back down. Good. And so he's searching for a way to become comfortable because he's uncomfortable right now, right? And so moments like that can be flustering. And that's okay if you get flustered in the moment. But it's important to act out of what the situation needs and not just out of what the emotion is asking you or telling you to do, right? Because I had to escalate to make myself clear. There. But again, I don't want to make it personal, right? Because if he's struggling, I'm not going to make it about me. This is between him and himself, not him and me. Good. And so you can see his attention isn't here, right? You can see how tight his shoulders are. You can see how tight his back is, his neck. Good. We're thinking about the things outside. And so, there. I'm seeing if I can bring him back in here, where we are. And I can use my flag to do so. So here, it's a bit of a drawing. I'm using this. Good. Stimuli to say, hey, there's things here too we can pay attention to. Good, there it is. And now, I don't know if you can see on the film, and I don't think the audio would be able to pick it up, but he's starting to breathe deeper. And I can hear that he's not taking full breaths. They're staggered. But what I'm interpreting this as is an attempt to regulate, to come back into his body. There you go, buddy. I'm just going to let him process this for a second. This is the longest he's been still. And then something outside grabs our attention. And I make a little shift, and he easily is able to come back. And then he repositions himself so he's not in such a tense stance. There. Good. And then what we can do is he and I can have a walk around together, instead of us just going back to the same thing that we were doing. But what we are going to do is that we are going to walk together. As in, I'm not walking him, he's not walking me, but we are walking together. And when I start, he can start, and we can both find where the halt is. Good. Out here. There. And we have a nice breath. And then the head drops. And then we smell that my pocket smells like cookies, and I tell him no. And together we walk. And then together we find where the halt is. And the reason why I say we find where the halt is right now I'm not asking him to stop on the same dime I do, but we're starting to feel each other out and see where each of us is leading each other. What is each animal putting into this? Good. And so there he offered a halt, and I obliged him. But instead of pulling on my rope halter, I simply think about it as that there is a halt hidden somewhere under the arena footing, and he and I are sniffing it out. So with each step, I'm looking for that halt, and we found it. And when I'm looking for the halt and I feel like it's getting closer, I will exhale, because that's my universal cue for, hey, let's touch base, let's relax, let's recollect, calm down, few different things depending on the situation. Boy. And so now we'll come back onto our wall. Another thing about this guy is that he's part of this anxiousness is that he wants to be on top of you, like in your pocket. And it's something we can use, but you know, he's a 1,000-pound animal. Good boy. I don't want him on top of me, especially when he struggles to control himself at times. But he lacks the confidence to be out there by himself. But this is already a lot better. An offer this way. Good. Good. You can see that desire to kind of reconnect and come be with. And that's good. We can build off of it. But the thing that this guy needs to learn in that is that we can have this connection from a distance. Look at that. He's starting to really understand now. He says, okay, if I put my brain to this, then number one, things are less stressful because less stimuli is applied to get to do the thing. Two, I've got something to focus my brain on. Good. Very nice. That's an intentional decision. He said, I'm going to go over here because that's what that means. I'm supposed to stay right here. This is intentional. Whereas before, a lot of the movements he was making was unintentional. His brain was going somewhere and then his feet were just dragged along. But now his brain is making a decision. I want to walk this way. That's what I've been asked. Then his feet are following the brain, not being dragged. They're following the brain. He says, okay, I did the thing. Can I come and be close? And I say, hey, thank you. We can do it from afar. He's thinking about something out there. I can try to very gently draw him back here. Say yes, good attention, stay there. And so see how I think it's important not to confuse quickness or urgency with like escalation or extremes. He may turn and push into the flag very quickly, but I don't have to escalate much to get him to yield to it again, to get him to say, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to go away from it. I could make every single time he pushes into the flag a huge fight, but then that's not really building his confidence on him troubleshooting things until he finds the right answer. He's not being malicious pushing through the flag. Could it become something dangerous? Yes, of course, and that's why we're dealing with it. But I'm not going to take his mistakes personally, because if I can answer them in a non-emotion filled way, then he's more likely to learn and want to do the right answer rather than this just being a super stressful situation for both of us. Good boy. Okay, he's standing here really nicely. Good boy. So I want to end with that. I'm going to let him go. And we'll end with that.